So 2022 is coming to a close. Thought it'd be kind of cute to do a little award show for the characters they released in 2022. We have a lot of different categories. Most will have a winner and a runner-up. Some will have a first, second, and third place because I couldn't really decide, but yeah. First, I guess to refresh everyone's memory, here are the characters that were released in 2022. We had a total of 17 characters, 9 of which were 5 stars, 8 of which were 4 stars. We had Shinha and Yunjin released in January, Miko in February, Ayato in March, Yelan in May, Kuki Shinobu in June, Heizo in July, Tignari and Kale in August, Dori, Sino, and Candice in September, Nilu in October, Nahida and Layla in November, and finally Wanderer and Faruzan in December. So yeah, a lot of cool and interesting units this year, but I guess we're just gonna go ahead and get started. Of course, this is all very subjective, so my opinions may differ from yours, but the first category will be for fun. Fun factor, which are the characters that are the funnest to play. I decided to give the runner-up reward or second place to Heizo here. I really like his playstyle, his fast attacks, the fact he is a melee catalyst user is just really interesting. His supercharged punch, once you get all 4 stacks or just charge it manually, can be very, very strong, and it's just a nice, satisfying little hit there. But the actual award has to go to Wanderer, mostly because of his cool elemental skill here and the fact he's flying, but also in combat he's quite a fun character to use. I just have a thing for fast attackers, so I'm probably a little biased. Up next we have the design award. This one was very hard. I mean, again, it's incredibly subjective, but just based on like character design, who do I think is the best here? For runner-up, I'm gonna give it to Sino. His design was the thing that stood out most to me when he was first revealed. I just really like the whole like Anubis Egyptian design aesthetic, I guess. But yeah, the actual winner definitely has to go to Dori. She's just so wacky. Her little diamond glasses, all the little trinkets around her, her purple slime companion. It's all just so interesting, and I really, really love her design. Now we're talking about the skill-related awards for basic, elemental skill, and burst. There will be rewards for each of these separately, and the way I decided this was essentially putting these basics or skills in a vacuum. So not necessarily how it interacts with the rest of the character's kit, but just the basic or skill or burst alone. And our runner-up here for best basic attack is actually Wanderer. Not only are his basic attacks super cool looking, but they're also incredibly fast and they have a long range. Also because of the fact Wanderer is Anemo, just using his basic attack can lead to a lot of damage via swirls from other characters. The winner for best basic has to go to Nahida, however. With how strong most of the Dendro reactions are, having a Catalyst Dendro user that can apply Dendro at just a simple click of the button without needing a cooldown or energy is really, really good. Which leads us into the best skill, and Nahida is actually our runner-up here. Just her elemental skill alone can already do a lot. Just applying them with this mark and this chain and then going to someone else, for example, you know, can do a lot. I actually did have quite a hard time with this category because most of the time, elemental skills do play some part in some other thing, but I think Nahida's elemental skill can kind of stand on its own. But in my opinion, the best elemental skill is Yelan's. It can do a massive amount of damage, it's good for traversal, and especially once you get her up to C1, it's a very good orb generator as well. As far as burst is concerned, this was definitely the hardest one to place, but there were a couple that came to mind, with the runner-up here being Yunjin, with the stipulation that she is C6. At C6, she gives a 12% normal attack speed increase, making her very versatile with a lot of teams. Basically any team where the main DPS does the majority of the damage with normal attacks, which in the meantime, we do have quite a few of those. And if burst was the only thing Yunjin had, she'd basically be the same character. So gonna give runner-up best burst to her. The winner, and this is at least obvious to me, but that's gonna have to be Yelan. Again, if Yelan's burst was the only thing she had, she'd still be an incredible character. Big, long-lasting off-field hydro damage, hydro application, damage boost. What more could you really ask for? The next reward is for innovation. Who are the characters that did something different this year? Halfway because of her design and halfway just because I want to give Dori another award. Dori is our runner-up. Her burst actually is pretty unique though, because it can provide energy to other characters. As you can see, our Shinha just got her burst filled up. Of course, winner does have to go to Wanderer. His flying ability, his special stamina bar there, definitely different from every other character, has a lot of utility and uses as well, and his stamina bar gives you something extra to pay attention to, adds a little bit of depth to the gameplay. So yeah, Wanderer definitely wins the Innovation Award. Now for a couple of less positive awards, starting with most niche. This isn't that negative of an award, but it isn't really a positive one either. But yeah, there has been kind of a trend to push towards more and more niche characters. Third place most niche has to go to Nilu. Now of course, being niche doesn't necessarily necessarily mean bad, but to get the most out of a character, it definitely restricts who they're going to be playing with. Neil, in this case, really only wants Dindros and Hydros in their team to take advantage of her bountiful cores. You, of course, don't have to use her like this, but she is best suited in a team like that. Second place goes to Shinha. She can really only be used in cryocentric teams. Of course, in cryo-focused teams, she is pretty much a shoo-in because she does give some nice buffs. But regardless, she is still very niche. And of course, the award to the most niche definitely goes to Faruzan here. This one was actually very easy. We don't have a ton of main DPS animos, and teams that focus around this main DPS animo are really the only ones she's going to be useful in. So again, I think Faruzan is a perfectly good character, but she's used in a very, very small amount of teams. So now we got to talk about the letdowns or the disappointments of the year. Again, this one was very hard for me. I just kind of hate hating, but yeah, there were a couple that sprung to mind. Runner up here will be Dory. I'm so sorry, Dory. But yeah, mine's level 70 and still C0, so maybe at C4 she'd be better. I guess we could get her up to C1, but that doesn't really do much. As it stands, the main cool thing about her being able to, you know, directly channel energy into characters, it's such a small amount that I don't think it'll actually be that helpful. Starting from 0 energy and Faruzan here, we can see how much she actually gains for this entire 12-second duration. And there it is. Kind of close to nothing, honestly. Possibly in a real battle with all the other stuff and orbs, you know, being generated from other things, it would be maybe just that little bit extra to make the rotation a bit smoother. But is Dory really worth a spot for that? Some other orb generator with other utility might be better. But the winner for the letdown award is, yes, I know here. I guess maybe some people saw that coming, since pretty recently he was one of the characters I said I kind of regret summoning for. I don't really want to say he's bad, just compared to a lot of the other 5 stars that were released this year, he does kind of stand out as being a bit of an underperformer. His burst transformation doesn't do as much as I feel like it should, but it does last very long, so if they were to shorten the duration and make it stronger, I think that'd be the only thing he'd really need. It would also make it a lot easier to retain buffs when his burst doesn't last 20 seconds. We do have a few more general awards to give out before the overall best. First up, we have best supports, and in this bracket we have 3 places. In 3rd place, I'm going to give it to Miko here. She has good, fast, easy to place off-field electro, with also a pretty easily 100% uptime here. For 2nd place, we have Yunjin for pretty much the same reasons we were talking about in the burst award. She fits in pretty much any team that relies on normal attacks to deal damage, as she boosts those quite a bit, and at C6 the attack speed as well. So she's a very versatile support and can be used in lots of different teams. And finally, up at number 1, again, kind of biased, but I'm gonna have to give this one to Yelan. What more can I really say? Lots of off-field damage, Hydra application, damage boost, cool fast movement with elemental skill. Now we have the main DPS award. This award can only go to units when they're actually meant to be main DPSs. I know most characters can deal damage and can sort of be a main DPS, but I classify a main DPS as someone who needs to be on the field doing their basic attacks, and that's part of their kit. Like Sino, for example, is a main DPS. Yelan can DPS, but I would not classify her as a main DPS. That being said, this was a pretty hard one, and I'm actually giving 2nd place to Ayato here. Granted, he doesn't need to be on the field for a massive duration, but most of his damage does come from normal attacks. And I'm giving best main DPS to Wanderer again. He has won a lot of awards tonight. Actually, looking through the character list, there weren't a ton of like straight up main DPSs. Wanderer, Sino, Ayato, Tignari, maybe. Even Tignari is a little iffy for me because he can get those 3 charge shots off very quickly and you can swap out to someone else. We have one final category before the overall best award, and that is best teams you can make with the 2022 characters. For the runner-up, we have the Wanderer focused team with Faruzan and Yunjin boosting him, and Yelan for some off-field Hydro to increase his stamina, as well as just some extra off-field damage as he normal attacks. Has a good mix of overall damage for Wanderer as well as off-field damage from Yelan. I would generally want some form of healing or protection for Wanderer, but the options were a little limited. Kuki Shinobu instead of Yelan or Yunjin would also work. And the number 1 team definitely has to go to Bloom team in general. We are using only units from 2022 here, but I would usually have a Kokomi in this team for some healing. Instead, we're just taking Traveler for some extra Dendro. But yeah, with this team, you know, kills everything super, super fast. Blooms with Nilu and Nahida are just insane. It's one of my best teams in general overall, just for pure damage per second, especially in multi-enemy scenarios. But all right, now we have the overall best hero award. Up at 3rd place is Wonder. I really like this character, but after comparing mine to Bones, I just feel like he needs a lot of investment to be really, really insane. I still think he's very, very good at C0, and I really enjoy playing with him. But yeah, to get the most out of him and have his burst actually do some solid damage, C2 is kind of the sweet spot there. I'm giving Yelan second place just because she is such a strong and versatile unit. She can be used in so many different teams to good effect for, of course, all the previous mentioned reasons in her other award wins. And the #1 best character of 2022, drum roll please. Boom, Nahida. Like stated earlier, most of the Dendro reactions are just very, very strong, and she is a Dendro Catalyst user. That alone would make her excellent, but she can also deal a surprising amount of damage. Of course, with the help of other elements doing reactions on her Trikarma mark there. She can also buff your other team members' elements of mastery with her burst. Mine is C3, so again, a little bias. Maybe Wanderer would be here instead of Nahida if the roles were reversed, but I feel like Nahida can still be very, very good at C0, whereas Wanderer, I mean, he's still good at C0, but since Wanderer is a pretty selfish damage dealer, I mean, he's Animo, everything kind of just depends on his own damage really. Whereas Nahida, she can buff elements of mastery of other characters. She's really good for reactions. The constellations she has now are mainly for herself. There were a couple characters that didn't win any awards, good or bad. Tignari, for example, I actually really like him as a character, but yeah, he didn't really stand out in any of the specific sections we had, I suppose. Kale and by extension Dendro Traveler were kind of just overshadowed by Nahida in pretty much every aspect. Candace can nuke decently all right, and she was pretty interesting because of the Hydro infusion, but again, there wasn't really any specific section I felt like throwing her in. Same with Layla really. I also don't really have much experience with her as she's still C0. I think the shield she provides and the off-field cryo could have some potential later on, but yeah, I think those were the only characters that weren't really mentioned. But yeah, I guess that'll do it for my little awards show here. Make sure to tell me what you think in the comments down below. Dropping a like or subscribing to the channel if you enjoyed is always greatly appreciated as well. Thanks, as always, for watching, and until next time.